We have already completed module 5 with array and enumeration techniques, right? So today we are going to start with the next module, that is module 6. Here in this module, we are going to learn classes, object related theory, and how to create the class and object. Okay, so class declaration, structure, object creation, then access modifiers we have already seen, so we will directly revise those things. Okay, and class members. So first of all, what is a class? So class is a group of objects which are common properties. Basically, what is class, that we will see. So if I tell you that I want to create one format. So for example, I want to see the students enrolled for any course. So what I will do, I will create one Excel file or a table. So in this table, I will first give some serial number, then the ID of the student, then name of the student, basic information I will add here, like name, ID, then education, or you can say graduated or not, then address, date of birth. Okay, these simple things I will add here. I will create one template, right? With these all values, I am going to create one template. So basically, what is that? We are creating this template only for whenever any student is going to enroll for this course. I'm going to put their name and these details under this column names, right? So what we are going to do here, suppose I'm considering the first person enrolled, that the serial number is 1. ID of that student is suppose something like this. Okay, name of that student is ABC. Education is suppose he is completed B. Address is suppose Mumbai. Or you can consider complete address also. And the date of birth is. So this is the date of birth I am considering. Okay? So this data I have added here under the column names. And again, if any other student is going to enroll, I will add the other new record under this. So basically, when these column names we are creating, those are nothing but we are creating a template to add some information under that, right? So this data is common for all the values or all the students which we are going to add under this table, right? So this data, basically, we are creating a template, and that template, in technical word, this template is nothing but a class in our programming language Java. Okay. So what we are going to create, this template where we are specifying column names, that is nothing but a template. We are creating a template, right? So is template, whenever we are creating any template in a programming, we create or we call it as Java. In a Java, we call it as class. Okay. So basically, all these column names will become fields under this class. Fields, or we can say properties, states. Okay. All these are nothing but the column names we are creating here, or these are the different names we are giving to those fields under the class. Okay. So here, simple, a class is a group of objects which have common properties, right? So the common properties are nothing but what common properties? The column names we have added here, those are nothing but the common properties, right? So inside a class, these are the common properties. The data which you are going to add under these columns are nothing but a single data is known as object of that class. Okay, this is nothing but an object of that class. So with the fields, we are creating a class, and the data which we are going to add into that class, that is exactly known as an object in the Java language. So here you can see A class is a group of objects which have common properties. It is a template, or we say it as a blueprint from which objects are created. Okay. It is a logical entity. It can't be physical. What is meant by this? So whenever you are creating column names only, whenever you are creating any class, then the memory never gets allocated for this class. Okay. Memory never gets allocated. So when the memory gets allocated for all these column names, when you're adding a new row into this table, that is nothing but we say whenever you're creating any object of that class, then the memory gets allocated. Okay. Until the objects are not created, class members never have the memory. Memory never gets allocated for the class itself. Okay. So that is why we say it is a logical entity. It can't be physical. So classes are divided into two different types. First one is the built-in classes and second one is the user-defined. So whenever we are creating any class in our Eclipse or any Java class, that is known as user-defined class. And we have used scanner class in the previous examples. So that class is predefined class. That is why we say it as built-in class. Okay. So similarly, we have object class in Java, which is parent of all classes. This is class object, and there are few properties of this class, few methods of this class that also we are going to see in this class itself, in this session. So this object is a main class, or this is the root class of the class hierarchy. Okay, this is the root class. Every class has object as a superclass. So whenever you are creating any class, that class is extended from this object class. It is never mentioned. Okay, it is by default. So all objects, including arrays, implement the methods of this class. So there are few methods in this class. This object class is inside java.lang package, and this is defined in Java's first version, 1.0 version itself. Okay. So all this is the base class or root class of all the class hierarchy. Okay. There are few methods in this class. Only few methods are there. Okay. So this is a constructor that we will see. So the methods are hash code equals clone toString notify all wait. Okay. So wait methods we are going to see in the threads mein. Okay. Notify is also we are going to see in the threads part. Now we are going to see toString method. What is the use of toString method and what is the use of object class itself. Okay. So we will see that once we will start with the practical of the classes and objects. Okay. So this is the object class. This is a built-in class. So there are multiple built-in classes. As you can see, the built-in classes inside all these packages. All these classes are built-in classes. Okay. These are built-in classes. And the classes which we created, those are known as user-defined classes. For example, we have created this color class, command line argument class. Okay. So all these classes are user-defined classes. Structure of a class. So what is the structure of a class? Class can contain fields, methods, constructors, few blocks, nested classes, or interfaces. Okay? So this is nothing but all are combined or grouped inside a class. So these are members. We call it as members of a class. Okay. So fields, methods, constructors, blocks, nested class, and interface. So now we will see one class. So suppose I want to create or I want to store any person's information or student information. Okay. So first we will create one package, new package for model 6. In this module 6, I am creating a class name student. Okay, I'm not including main method here. So I want to define a student. So we are going to identify the properties of a student. What the student have, each and every student will have a ID, right? So we will identify the data type of that ID. It can be integer, it can be string, anything you want. I am using string here, string ID. Okay. Then the student will have a name. That is why we consider the next property, next field, student name, string name. Student will have a phone number, address, right? So we will add string phone number or contact, string address, then graduation, what the student has already studied, that is education, you can say. Okay, all these are nothing but whenever you are identifying the properties of that one student, those are known as properties, fields, or states of class. Of class. Here in our example, the class is student. Okay, so here we are creating or identifying the properties. This class is also known as entity. Okay, class is also known as entity. These are also known as fields, properties, states, because with the help of all these information, you are going to define one student data, right? So that is why we are specifying these are properties of a student, these are fields of a student, these are states of a student. Whenever you are creating these variables inside a class, these variables are known as instance variables. This is the Java variable. Local variable we have already seen. This is the second type of variable, instance variables. Instance variables are nothing but we are defining inside a class. Okay, these are class level variables. These are instance variables, class level name. Class level variables are different. Those are static variables. So instance variables means whenever you are going to create an object of this class, then only you will get or allocate the memory and you will save the data. How the data will get stored, that we will see. So this is the first part of a class, that is fields. Second is constructor. Okay, currently I am adding a constructor, but we will see what is the constructor later. What is the use of constructor, that we will see later. Then the behavior of a student. What is the behavior or the operations you want to perform on that student, operations or behavior? All these are known as, we can define it using with the help of methods. Okay, with the help of methods. Suppose I want to display this information of all the information of this student. Okay, so I am creating one method, that is void display. Here I am simply adding one statement, system.out.println display method hot. So you can create multiple methods also. So these are nothing but the operations or behavior of a student you are defining with the help of methods. These methods are known as instance methods. Instance methods. Okay, so these are instance methods. Instance means nothing but an object, that we will see later. So instance methods. Here we have created one class named student. We have defined some properties. We have defined some operations or behavior of the student. Okay. Now, this class doesn't have a main method. It doesn't have a main method. We have not defined a main method inside this class. So this class is nothing but called as compilable class. It will get compiled. So whenever you are trying to execute, it will not show you the execution option because it will get only compiled. Okay, this is a compilable class. Compilable classes which doesn't have, 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 main method. Okay, which does not have main method. The class which does not have main method is known as compilable class. We can compile it. That means from this .java file, .class file will get created, but we cannot execute this. Okay, so this is a constructor. Sorry, we cannot execute it because we can execute the classes only if we are adding main method inside it. Okay, if we are adding a main method inside it, this is a executable class. Okay, this is a executable class. Why? Because we have created main method inside our sorting array class. But in this student class, we have not added main method. That is why this class is known as compilable class. The .class file gets created, but it will not get executed. Okay, so whenever you are creating any class in this way, which has properties, fields, constructors, behaviors, that is instance methods, as well as we can add some blocks and nested classes and interfaces also. Nested classes and blocks, methods, all these things we are going to see later in the practical part. Okay, so this is nothing but a structure of a class. And whenever you are creating a class with all these fields and the constructor methods, these are known as class members. Okay, all these are known as class members. Class members, instance variables, instance methods, class members. Okay, all these are nothing but known as class members. So here, for all these fields, the memory will never get allocated whenever you are creating the student class. Memory will not get allocated for this. This is just a logical entity. Logical entity. We are creating a class that is nothing but the logical entity. Okay. This is logical entity. Now we will see next part. Rules for creating a class. Okay. Now we have to use class keyword compulsory. Whenever you are defining any class, you have to use class keyword. Then the name of the class should start with an uppercase letter. Always you have seen here, we have created the classes which are starting with the uppercase letter itself. We never start the class names with any numbers. We can use underscore. We have seen the Java identifier rules, right? So those will apply for the class names also. So always we start with uppercase letter or underscore. Then the Java file can contain any number of classes, but should not have more than one public class. Okay, so whenever we have created any classes, अभी तक जो भी हमने classes create किए हैं, all these classes have main method. All these are public classes, and we have not created any other classes inside this. Okay. Here also we have created public class student itself. We have seen one example where we have created a normal class without default class basically. That is also inside the same .java file, but that was not public class. That was with the default access verifier, right? I think that we have seen in the access specifiers part. Okay, so we have created this class ABC. This is not a public class. This access specifier.java, this is a public class, and this is the single public class with the main method inside it. We have created a single public class in one .java file. So that is what mentioned here. The Java file can contain any number of classes, but should not have more than one public class. Okay, the file name should be named after the public class followed by the .java extension. Whatever the public class name, that will be the name for your .java file. Always. Okay, so if you have the main method and that class is a public class, then you should give the same name to the .java file. Okay, if you are writing the main method, then you should give the same name. Here in this example, we have created the student as the public class name, and we are storing it as a student.java itself. We don't have a main method inside the student.java. Then one class can inherit another single class. So inheritance concept, when we will see that time I will explain this in detail. Okay, so once I have already explained that the object class, which is in the java.lang package, we are by defaultly inheriting in our user defined classes. Okay, this object class we are inheriting by default here in our user defined classes. If you want to see that, if we try to create a new class here, you can see the super class name. It is already mentioned java.lang.object. Okay, we are not changing this. We are simply giving the name of that class, and we are creating the main method if we want, and we are using the finish button to create a class. But we are not changing this. It is by default given here. The super class is java.lang.object. That is why we say in Java, everything is object. Now the syntax of a class, we have already seen this. We have to specify access specifier. It can be public. It can be default. Okay. Private classes, static classes are there that we will see in the nested classes part. Okay. Class is a keyword. Then the class name you have to specify. Class body containing fields, methods, constructors, blocks, another class, and interface. Okay. So all this is inside these curly braces, nothing but we are defining class. This is an example. So here I have created one class name, that is car. We have to identify the attributes of a car. So for example, attributes are also known as states, fields, and properties. Okay. So car will have a car number, color, its mileage, its type, etc. So all these are nothing but the properties of a car. Car verb or function or method, behavior, how the car behaves. So it is nothing but we have created one method, drive car, where I am simply displaying some data. Okay. So this is nothing but the function, method, fields, attributes inside a car class. This car class also don't have any main method. Now, we have created this template. We have created a class, okay, with all these fields, properties, states, methods, etc. Now I want to add the data into it. Okay, I have added this row, the first row with some data. This data is nothing but the object of a class. I said that. Okay, so how the object gets stored? Objects are nothing but real-time entities. Okay, so object. In day-to-day life also we say everything is object. How? The table is object, non-movable things. Okay, movable things are also objects. Table, chair, pen, everything is object, right? A person, a student, a girl, a boy, everything is object. We say consider it as object, right? So what is not there? Object mean into Java. So whenever we want to save data with the help of this template or with the help of this class, whenever we want to store some data, we want to create the data, we create objects of the data. So exactly what happens, as I said, class is nothing but a logical entity, but object is physical entity. Okay, objects are physical entities. Objects are physical entities. Why we say it as a physical? Because whenever you are creating any object of that class, then only the memory will get allocated. How the memory gets allocated? So we are creating, suppose, object 1. Okay. So for object 1, all these column values we need to give. Okay. That means this object 1 will have all these column names, or nothing but we have the fields and behaviors also. Suppose this has a display method. Okay, so these are fields, as well as the constructors are not there, but the fields, instance methods, instance members जो भी है, instance methods है, instance class members जो है, जिसको हम instance variables and instance methods बोलते हैं, वो every object will have its own copy of these things. Okay, every object will have own copy of the instance members. Okay, that means instance variables and instance methods. So the instance variables are nothing but these column names we have created as a template, and that is nothing but we want to store the data for this object one. So the same data I am going to store here for the object one. Okay, so whenever you are going to give the values to the serial number one, ID, name, education, address, date of birth, and the display method, so all these will have its own memory allocation according to the data type of these fields which you have mentioned here while defining the class. Okay, जब भी आप क्लास डिफाइन करते हो, जो फील्ड आपने दिया है, जो भी डेटा टाइप दिया है, उसके अकॉर्डिंगली मेमोरी एलोकेशन यहाँ पे होगा फॉर ऑल दीज मेंबर्स ऑफ द क्लास, एंड into that members allocated memory we are storing our data. Okay, so this is the object one. It will have its own memory allocated values stored into the memories. Okay, so this is the second object. Same data or different data you are using. So whenever you are creating the second object, its own copy of all the data members, member functions will have, and the memory is allocated for this object is different. Okay, so the object one have the separate memory, object two will have the separate memory, and in that object two, all these fields will have separate memories. Okay, suppose you are not specifying any value to any of these member, no problem, but the memory will be allocated for that. The value will be by default null or zero according to the data type you are using. Default values क्या होते हैं हमने already देखा है, right? So similarly, जो भी डेटा टाइप आप यूज कर रहे हो उसके अकॉर्डिंगली जो भी डिफॉल्ट वैल्यू होगा वो वहां पे स्टोर हो जाएगा, बट द मेमोरी विल बी allocated only once you create the object. Okay? So whenever you are creating or adding any row inside a table, or you are adding the row under the table, that is nothing but you are creating object, and the memory gets allocated according to the data types you have used for the members. So object is an instance of a class. It is also known as instance of a class. That is why we say the variables are instance variables and instance methods. Okay, it represents a specific entity that possesses the characteristics defined within its class. When a class is instantiated, an object is created occupying memory space. Okay, that is why we say object is physical entity and class is a logical entity. Each object has its own state, values of the instance variables, and behavior methods defined in the class. An object consists of states, behavior, and identity. For statements, it is represented by attributes of an object. Those we have already mentioned in the class. Those are nothing but the attributes of an object. It also reflects the properties of an object. Behavior, it is represented by the methods of an object, and it also reflects the response of an object to other objects. Third one is the identity. It gives a unique name to an object and enables it to interact with other objects. Okay? So whenever we are defining any object, we have to give a unique name to object of that particular class. Now we will see how to create and initialize an object. So to create an object of the class, name, class, the following can be written. So class is the name of the class. Okay. Object is the name of the object you want to give. Equal to, we will use new keyword here to create the object or instantiate the object. After the new keyword, we are using the same name of the class and the brackets. This is nothing but we are calling the constructor of a class. So the new keyword is used to allocate the new memory space. This is the dynamic memory allocation. Whenever you are creating or instantiating any object, according to the class members, the memory will get allocated dynamically. That means at the time of execution. Okay. So in Java, we can initialize object in three ways: by reference variable, by method, and by constructor. Okay. So for example, here we will create the object of the student class, which we have already created. So I'm going to create a object of the student class in another class. So we will create another class name student demo. In this class, I am creating the main method. Now we are going to create the object of the student class. So first we use the student as the name of the class, then S1 as the name of the object equal to new keyword, and then we use the same name of the class and brackets. This is nothing but we are calling the constructor defined in the student class. Okay. अगर ये नहीं है, then the JVM will create this default constructor and call it. Okay. Constructor part we are going to see in the next module. Okay. So this is the object S we have created. Now this S1 object, we can access the members of this class based on the given accessibility. ठीक है, जो भी access specifier आपने mention किया है, based on that you can access these members. Currently, these members I have not mentioned any access specifier. That means these have default accessibility. That means we can access these members within the same package. Okay. So how to access? Whenever you want to, you have created this object, you want to access these members, we will use dot operator. Okay. We will use dot operator to access the members of the class. So we use S1 dot. You can see all these members are available here. So I want to give the value to ID field. Okay. So S1 dot ID is equals to, I'm giving some value. So this value will get stored where the S1 object is created, similar to this. Consider that this object 1, instead of this object 1, this is the S1 object. Okay. So S1 object, for this object S1, ID के लिए memory allocation हुई होगी, right? So in that memory allocation, we are storing the value which we have just given here. Okay. So the value we have given here, that will get stored where the value of, we are storing this value where the memory is allocated for this S1 object's ID field. Okay. जहां पे S1 object के ID field को memory allocation हुई है, वहां पे ही ये data store होगा. Similarly, if we want to give the name, then we access that name property. You can give the name. Okay. I'm giving this name. So again, the memory allocated for S1 object. In that S1 object, the memory is allocated for name field, and we are specifying the value to that name field. Okay. So this is nothing but we can access all the members and you can specify the values to it. This is the one way using this object reference. Okay. You can pass, second way is to a method and to a constructor that we are going to see later. Okay. So initialization we have already done. We have accessed the members. Similar to the states and behaviors also we can access. So we have a method named display. We can call that method also. Okay. So this is S1 object. Whenever you are using new keyword, the memory gets allocated. The memory gets allocated for all the members mentioned here in this class. ठीक है, सारे members के लिए memory allocation होती है. ID, name, contact address, education, as well as the display method. We are giving the values only to the ID and name. So the values get stored where the memory is allocated for the ID field, and this Aditya value will get stored where the memory is allocated for name field inside the S1 object. For other members, as we are not specifying any values, the default values according to the data type will get stored. Okay. Now we can execute this because we have already created this object inside the main method. This is the executable class, and we can execute this with the help of Java application. Okay, so you can see display method. I have directly called the display method. The values we have stored for this object are not displayed. Okay, so if you want to display the values here, we can add those. System.out.println id is equals to id filled. Okay, then name is equals to name filled. I'm adding address also is equals to address field. That's it. So now we'll go to the student demo again, and I am executing the same application. So you can see whatever the value we have stored for the S1 object, we are getting here. Okay, address, we have not mentioned any value to the address. That's why it is by default string type and it is null. Similar to this, we can create n number of objects. So we will create student S2 is equals to new student S2 dot ID is equals to, so value something like this, and giving S2 dot name, okay, contact, some value I am giving similar to this. S2 dot name I am mentioning is equals to, and S2 dot address I am not mentioning here. Okay, I will directly call S2 dot display method. Okay. Now you can see the values will be different for this object. Values will be different for S1 object because they are holding, they have its own copy of all the fields. ठीक है, ये data इसको नहीं जाएगा, इसका data इसको नहीं आएगा. Okay, these have its individual memory allocations. So you can see this is for the second name Anita का जो ऑब्जेक्ट है उसके लिए जो मेमोरी एलोकेशन हुआ था उसमें ये डेटा स्टोर हुआ है, एंड दोज आर एक्सेस्ड फ्रॉम द memory allocated for S2 object. So you can create n number of objects based on similar to this. Okay, if you want to give the third way is reference variable. If you want to use a third object S3, and instead of creating a new object, you want to use the same object created, then you can simply use the reference variable, that is this. So what it will do, whatever the data we have stored here into the S1, it will get stored here into S3. The memory allocation will be same. It will only refer. That's why this is known as reference variable. Okay, this is known as reference variable because we are only referring the memory allocated for S1. Whatever the memory is allocated for S1, we are only using that memory allocation for this student, so that this S3 will also have the same data. So we can call S3.display method. You can see the same data will get displayed as the S1 object. We are referring the S1 object. You can see this ID and the name and address also. Okay, same here. Why? Because we are referring the memory allocation of S1 object where the S1 object is memory is allocated for S1 object. We are only referring that. That is why this S3 object is known as reference variable. This is known as instance variable. Oh, sorry, this is the instance of the student class. Okay, this is the object of the student class. S1 and S2 are objects of the student class, instances of the student class. But S3 is a reference variable for the student object S1. Okay, clear? So these are few points related to the object. Now, if you thought that you don't want to store the values, okay, that means memory should get allocated, but I don't want to give any name to that object. Then we create the object directly with the help of new keyword, then the constructor. Okay, this is known as anonymous object. Anonymous object means we are not giving any name to the object created. Okay, so anonymous objects are those objects that have been instantiated but not stored into a variable. They are used for immediate method calling but not destroyed after method calling. Okay, if the object has to be created only once, we can use anonymous objects. Suppose this is the class student. We are creating new student and I want to call the display method directly instead of storing that into any variable. I want to directly call the display method. Like here we have used a reference variable, right? But I want to skip this part. I want to create a new object and I want to call the display method only. Then we use this anonymous object. That means those are not, we are not giving any name to that object. Those are get stored. Okay. Those are get stored, but we are not giving any name to it. Okay. These are instantiated, not stored into a variable. Okay. So these are known as anonymous objects. Anonymous methods, we are not creating anonymous methods. We are creating only anonymous objects. Okay. Anonymous methods we are not creating. We have to give a name to the method. Now you can see this display method ID. We have not mentioned any values to this object, right? That is why we are not getting any values here. Everything is null. This is just for information purpose. Where to use this, that we will see later. ठीक है, जहाँ पे आपका actual data है, अगर सिर्फ उस क्लास में से आपको मेथड कॉल करनी है, but you don't need to store that object. Revise part, classes and objects. Class, here the example is car, class car. We are creating the object 1, object 2, and you can create n number of objects from that class. Okay. So class is a physical, this is a logical entity. Objects are physical entities. Okay. So properties of any class car can be color, tires, mileage, weight, speed limit, etc. So object 1 will have all these properties. Object 2 also will have its all these properties. And object n will also have its own all these properties. Okay. The values will be stored according to the object memories. Okay. So classes are an interface or create multiple real-time object instances that share common properties. So these are the, whenever you want to create any class, that class will have the common properties. Then will you create the object, then the memory gets allocated for the same class. That is why we say that object is also known as instance, because we are instantiating a class, because the memory gets allocated at the time of object creation. Unless and until you are not creating any object, this class don't have any it doesn't have any meaning. Okay, it is just a template. जब तक आप object नहीं create करते हो तो class का कोई मतलब नहीं है. Class is just a template, nothing else. When you create, when you instantiate it, then only the class will have a meaning and you are using the members of the class. Again, the same we will see here. Another example, the class name is person with the data members, unique ID, name, age, city, gender. Some methods, those are nothing but we say as data methods or instance methods, behaviors, etc. Those are eat, study, sleep, play. We are creating two objects, different values we are giving to this name, Chan, 35, Delhi, and male. For the name, in the second object, for name we are giving Daisy, age 20, city Pune, gender female. Okay, so these are two different objects we are creating of a single class. That is why we can say we can create n number of objects from a single class. That is why we say class is a blueprint of an object. क्योंकि वो ऑब्जेक्ट में क्या डेटा आपको स्टोर करना है, दैट वी आर स्टोरिंग हियर इनटू अ क्लास, ब्लूप्रिंट ऑफ एन ऑब्जेक्ट. Okay, the difference between class and object is object, as we have seen, it is a real world entity that is used for unique representation. It has certain behavior, state, and identity. Class is a collection of similar types of objects. Classes are composed of names, attributes, and methods. An object is known as an instance of a class, and class is known as blueprint of an object. Okay. Objects are physical entities. Classes are logical entities. Objects are created using new keyword. Classes are created using class keyword. It consumes some memory space. Who consumes? Object consumes the memory space because those are physical entities. Classes are only logical entities. That is why we don't require any memory space. We can create object as many times we want according to our requirement. But class we create only once because template is created only once. If you want to make changes, you can make changes into the same class, but we never create multiple times. Okay, we never create a single class multiple times. Okay, so we can create objects multiple times. Access specifiers and modifiers we have already seen. We will simply revise this. There are 4 different access specifiers: private, default, protected, and public, right? So access specifiers here in the same package, classes public है तो आप कहीं से भी access कर सकते हो. If that member is private, then only within the class we can access it. If that is a protected, then within the same package, and the child class in different package can access it. If it is a default, then within the package you can access from everywhere. Okay, in the same package, the same class, subclass, and non-subclass also we can access the members. Okay, clear? We can apply these modifiers to the class variables, methods, and methods also. Okay, not method variables. Method variables are always local variables. We never provide these members to it. Clear? Any doubt till here? Anyone? Okay. Anonymous objects, fine. So whenever you don't want to store or create or don't want to give any name to an object, but you directly want to call any method of that class, instead of storing into one variable, you can directly use the anonymous object with the help of dynamic memory allocation, with the help of new keyword, calling the constructor. After dot, you're calling the method. Okay, so this is nothing but you're dynamically calling a method without storing the object name, without giving the object name. This is known as anonymous object. The object gets created internally by the JVM, but the name, we are not specifying any name. That is what I am saying. The object name will be assigned by the JVM. Internally, JVM is creating, giving, or assigning the memory. So we are not assigning the name. We don't know what is the name of that object. Internally, the JVM is assigning some name. Suppose XYZ, according to the class name, student. Okay. According to the class name, it is assigning some name to that object. But we don't know what is the name. That is why this is a one-time call. If you want to call any object or any method once without creating any object, then we use this anonymous objects. Internally, JVM creates object and gives some name. Okay. And then call that method, because the memory will get allocated. Memory gets allocated with the help of this new keyword itself. And here we are calling the constructor. So what is the use of constructor, that we will see in the next module. But abhi ke liye itna dhyan mein rakho, whenever you are calling the constructor, that means we are specifying what members we have in this class, and we are simply constructing an object. So memory will get allocated whenever you are using the new keyword. Okay. Clear? Okay, this is all about classes and objects. Now, coming back to your object class. So as I said, this is the root class for all the classes, This is the root class. Okay. So we are going to see one method of this class. No, you cannot use the same. If you want to use this multiple times, then instead of using the anonymous object, you can directly create an object and then use it, right? Anonymous object का purpose यही है कि if you want to use it only once, if you want to call a method without creating any object or without storing any object, you can call that method directly in this way, dynamically creating object. That is known as anonymous object. If you want to use this object or the object you have created in your program multiple times, then rather than, we never use the anonymous objects, we always use predefined object instance. Okay. So coming back to the object class. So object class has two methods, as I told you. So these methods are predefined methods which are by default available to all the classes. Okay, by default available to all the classes. So this student demo is also child of object class. So suppose here you want to call any method, so you can see by default methods are available. After the main method, I will explain. You can see the clone method, equals method, hash code method, toString method. All these methods are by default available. You can see the description here, that is override method in object. Okay. So these methods are already defined here in the object class, and you can override, you can use those methods in your class because all these methods are by default available to all the classes as object is a root class. Okay. So here we are going to see the toString method of the object class. So the toString method of the object class, whenever you are creating any object, okay, so this object will have a specific identity. If you want to see, I will display it here. If you try to display directly the S1 object, okay, I am not using any display method or any value. I am directly using S1 object. So once we execute this, you can see one value is displayed here. Module6.student is the name of the class, and after the @ we are getting some value. Okay, so this is a unique value for the object S1 of type student. Okay, this object is actually provided runtime class. Okay, runtime, whenever we are executing this is providing you the unique class name with the class name unique ID. Okay, this is a unique ID for this object S1. If you see, the same for S2, S3 will be different. I'm using S3 here, using S2 here. Okay, let's see whether these are same or different. So this is S1, this is S2. Okay, these are different. For S3, it is same because we are referring the S1 itself. Okay, that is why these two IDs are same because we are referring S1 here in the S3. ठीक है, तो हर एक ऑब्जेक्ट के लिए different IDs are allocated. If you want to see the values stored for this, here we have stored for contact, right? In the display method, we are not getting the contact value. So suppose you want to see the value for the contact, you can directly access it with the help of same s2.contact. You will get the contact values. Okay, so with the help of dot operator, you can access the members You can give the values, you can display the values, but the main part is the access specifiers, access modifiers used for these members. ठीक है, कौन सा एक्सेस स्पेसिफायर है उसके बेसिस के ऊपर हम उसको डेटा एक्सेस कर सकते हैं. ठीक है, सो दिस इज द डिस्प्ले मेथड कॉल्ड. This is the contact value we have displayed here. ठीक है, you are accessing. The value gets stored into the memory and we are accessing with the help of dot operator. Okay, so all this is nothing but we are creating objects, different memory allocations, different IDs for all these objects. Okay, for anonymous objects you cannot see because there is no name assigned. Okay, तो आप anonymous object का कुछ नहीं देख सकते. Now here, if I want to display or I want a string representation of the object of this student class, then we will directly use जो हमने यहाँ पे display method में लिखा है. Instead of that, I want to display all the information. Then we will add toString method of a object class here. Okay, object class here. Then you can create your own string representation. जो यहाँ पे हमने लिखा है वही मैं डिलीट करके यहाँ पे ऐड करती हूँ रिटर्न स्ट्रिंग. ठीक है, सो व्हाट विल हैपन, इट विल गिव यू द स्ट्रिंग रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ ऑब्जेक्ट. सो अभी जो हमने यहाँ पे system.out.println में s1, s2, s3 लिखे थे and we were getting IDs of those objects, but now when you have added the string representation, that is you have included the toString method in the class, then you will get the values mentioned in the ID, name, address fields. ठीक है, जो आपने यहाँ पे डिस्प्ले किया है, जो भी वैल्यूज आपने यहाँ पे रिटर्न किया है, वही आपको मिलेगा. कब? जब आप in that particular class you are overriding a toString method or you are including the toString method. If you are not including the toString method, then we will get the IDs of that object. Clear? So this is toString method is mentioned in the class student, and this is the object, this is the method actually of the object class. So that method is used to give you the string representation of the object. Okay, in interview ये क्वेश्चन पूछा जाता है. ठीक है, सो ये स्ट्रिंग हैश कोड जनरेट होता है फॉर ईच एंड एवरी ऑब्जेक्ट. जो पहले वाले रन में हमें दिख रहा था, द @ के बाद जो हैश कोड होता है, that you can also create. If you want to see the hash code, you can use the hash code method of the object class to get that hash code, and you can get with the value. There is a method named get class. Okay, this get class will always give you the class name actually. We have a class name class. Okay, this is a class name class, and this class has the all the information related to your classes. Whenever you are creating any class, these class will initialize everything. So the name of the class, then what is the get class will always, the get class method is also here. That class name will give you the name of the class. Super class and all. There are a lot of methods, but we are using only get class method. Okay, so the get class name will always give you the current class name whose object is created. So here in the object, it is used to get class. So this will give you this get class method returns class reference, and this get class method will give you the object of the current class, that is runtime class. Okay, you can see the object that represents the runtime class of this object. Okay, this class is a class. Compilable class you can create in a separate file also, in the same file also, no problem with that. But in a single file, we'll never create multiple public classes. Okay, only one public class should be there. You can create outside of the same package also. So if you want to create this student demo in another package, that is also fine, no problem with that. But that time, depending on the accessibility, you can access the members. Not only in the main class, we can access that anywhere. Okay, you can create the object anywhere. I am creating here in the main method itself or main class, but it is not compulsory. You can create the object anywhere. We have already created the object of scanner classes, right? So we are creating, that is also we are created in the main method, but it is not compulsory. You can create the objects anywhere in your program, in any method, in any class. That is not compulsory that it should be main class or main method itself. For execution purpose, I am showing you this here in the main method. Okay, clear? So with this, your classes and object module is completed with the basic concepts of all the classes, how to initialize the object, what is object, everything, the structure and all. Clear? As well as we have seen the object classes toString method. Baki methods है, wait, notify, etc. That we will see later when we learn the trading part. Okay, then we will continue with the next module tomorrow. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Yes, 3 assignments uploaded, but I only received only one assignment. I think only one student completed the assignment. Others are not yet completed. I think it is not yet reflected then. I will recheck. Okay. Please go through all the assignments and upload the assignments also. I will upload next assignments on module 4, module 5 within the next week. You can go through those also. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, ma'am. You may end the meeting. Thank you.